Hey, good morning. My name is Andrea. I'm the worship pastor here at Redwood Park Church. We're excited to be worshiping with you this morning, so I want to welcome you to our service online today. The song we're starting off with, I think, is really relevant. The world is in chaos right now. There's a lot going on, and I love that this song just speaks to the truth that we have in Jesus, the hope that he brings, and that's what we want to be focused on. We want to be focused on us as a church being united. So we're going to sing this a familiar tune, Good Grace, and I hope that you'll join in with us. People come together, strangers, neighbors, our blood is one. Children of generations, of every nation, of kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where help comes from. Whoa, whoa.
till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Yes, I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I am surrounded by the arms of the Father. I am surrounded by songs of deliverance. We've been liberated from our bondage. We're the sons and the daughters. Let us sing our freedom. child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
Hi there. Welcome to the online service of Redwood Park Church. We're so glad that you chose to join us today. My name is Greg Langman, and I'm serving as the transitional lead pastor during this season of Search for a New Lead Pastor. I live in Burlington, Ontario, and serve the church remotely, which is something I never dreamed could be possible prior to COVID. If you're like most of us, there's lots of things that maybe we never thought we would do prior to COVID. Things like homeschooling our children, or drive-by parades for birthdays, or, well, physical distancing, all kinds of things. One of the things that we maybe never thought we'd do as a church is to have an online annual general meeting, which we're going to be doing on June 23rd at 6:30 p.m. using Zoom. If you're a member of Redwood Park Church, you should have received your online packages with all the information. If you're not a member but would like to attend the AGM on June 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Using Zoom, then you can do that by emailing office@redwoodpark.org. Again, that's office@redwoodpark.org. If you're wanting some log information on how to be a part of the annual general meeting. Now, to be honest with you, I like change. Well, more specifically, I like change that I initiate. I'm not such a big fan of change that is thrust upon me. I can find that stressful and overloading or overwhelming at times. And one of the things that's been stressful for me during this time is not knowing when something else is just going to change. That's going to cause us as a church and staff to have to pivot from the plans that we had just set out because of a new announcement. Now, I know that's not just us as staff or myself that struggles with those types of things. I'm sure that this has been challenging for you as well. Now, in the midst of all these challenges, though, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your words of encouragement. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for the way that you have been faithful in giving. That's just been amazing to us as a leadership team. And if you want to continue to give to Redwood Park Church, or you're not sure how to give, you can do so by going online to our website. You can also use the Tithely app that's available for you, or you can drop that off to the church building. But again, thank you for your faithfulness in finances. I also want to thank you for choosing unity. Thank you for serving one another and caring for one another so well during this time when all of us have needed extra help at times. Now, 2 weeks ago, we set aside time to pray as a church staff to just listen to the Spirit, to serve out of the gifts that God's given us, with a hope and desire that we would identify a multi-staged plan for reopening the church building. Now, after this 3-hour meeting, which should have been like draining because we were online for so long, our church staff left excited and energized because we experienced this profound sense of unity with God and with one another. And we have a draft plan that we feel will help Redwood navigate not only this season while we're looking for a new lead pastor, but will also help us to intentionally develop and support us to be a church with the city and for our world. At Redwood, we believe that everyone is welcome. We believe that Jesus wants to welcome everyone in the city of Thunder Bay into a life-transforming relationship with him and with others. Now, many of us are already experiencing an ongoing work of transformation in our lives, and many of us maybe have some deep and rich relationships with other people. But we want that for everyone at Redwood. But not just everyone at Redwood, we want this for the people of Thunder Bay. And we're very aware that the majority of people in Thunder Bay, they're not looking at this point to come to a church service. We're also very aware that we can't address the issues of racism and other issues in our city unless we are actively engaged in the fabric of our city, unless we are going out to where the people are who need him. We are often saying these days, Black Lives Matter, Indigenous lives matter. Church, this is a time for us to find new ways to bring the love and hope of Jesus to the city of Thunder Bay and to the people who live here. Our mission statement says that we want to become fully alive followers of Jesus who love God, love others, and love the world. But in order for us to do that in 2020 and in the days ahead, we need to keep staying open to finding new ways of doing that. Friends, when the majority of people have stopped thinking about racism, when all the social media posts have maybe shifted to something else, we want to be a church that is still out there engaged in bringing the love and hope and reconciliation and unity to the people in Thunder Bay and in our city. We want to be a people who are actively engaged in our city, bringing hope and reconciliation. This is not something that we want to be a passing fad. This should be something that flows out of who we are as people who are loved by Jesus and are called to bring the hope and love of Jesus to others. Now, one of the things that, impacts or affects, how we keep doing this is the recent announcement from the Ontario government informing churches that they are able to now open, starting this weekend, at 30% of their building capacity for religious services. This announcement came sooner than we had anticipated. And we've been working on draft plans, as I mentioned, for the reopening. We put out surveys, and we're really appreciative for everyone who filled out those surveys, by the way. That's so helpful for us. And so over this next couple of weeks, the staff will be reviewing the guidelines set up by the government this past Thursday. We're going to be going over the survey results, and we're going to be reviewing the draft plan that we had already established, and we'll be communicating out to you what we see as the next steps. Now, I want to be clear, our current draft plan includes an emphasis on supporting people to gather in small groups, to watch and interact around online services, and to do life together in small groups. The plan also includes mid-sized gatherings at the church building around worship, relationships, and training on specific topics such as the Holy Spirit, marriage, Alpha, and more. We're also looking at moving towards live streaming our services, which will allow us to be far more responsive to the ever-changing needs in our current cultural climate. Now, over the next couple of weeks, we will be communicating with you our reopening plan, and we would appreciate your prayers and your patience as we do this. Now, as we take the next steps, we recognize that not everyone is going to move at the same pace or want the same things. Some are going to want to get back into the building as quickly as possible, even with all the restrictions, and others are not going to want to come back until all the restrictions are lifted. My hope is that while we have different thoughts and opinions on these types of things, that we will find unity in the Spirit as we navigate the way forward together. I believe the words of the Apostle Paul to the people of Church of Ephesus are just as applicable to us today. And Caitlin's going to be unpacking this later in her message, which I'm excited about. But it says this in Ephesians: I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. May the Lord give us grace to live this out. Now, speaking of guidance, there's two more things I'd like to mention to you here before Dre leads us into communion. First of all, the search committee is looking for a new lead pastor, but the COVID process or the COVID reality has slowed us down. But they did meet recently, and they're making some key pivots in their plan to make sure that this is a robust search process to ensure that we get the best candidate possible for this church in the coming season. Please be praying for this team, as this is a really important role that they're playing. Now, some people have asked me, am I going to be the next senior pastor or lead pastor? The answer is no. This is not something that I will be pursuing. I will, however, be staying on in my current role, working 12 to 15 hours a week as the transitional lead pastor into the fall. And to be honest with you, this is a challenge for me, just the amount of time and the needs of the congregation. So there's a few things I'm doing. One is I am seeking to equip and support more volunteers with our staff. That's a commitment we're making because we really do need to engage more people in what we're doing. And the other thing is I've been praying and seeking God for direction in, is there something else we could do? And he led me into just an interesting conversation with a pastor from another Alliance church about how our two churches could potentially serve together or work together in this coming season. Well, after weeks of praying and conversations, the board of Redwoods and the board of this other church have approved a 6-month experiment with a partnership with this other church. Now, I'll be sharing the details of this exciting new partnership that's emerging next week. So watch for details around what church this is and what they're going to be doing and what that's going to look like. We'll be putting out a video next week, so really excited about that. Now, church, before Dre leads us in communion here, I want us to remember God is good, and he is providing for us. I want to urge you, keep praying as we seek together to find the best way forward. May we stay unified in the Spirit as we do so.
We're going to move into a time of communion. And as I was preparing this week, I was struck by this idea that the first ever communion was taken at home. You see, Jesus and the disciples were sitting around a table together. They were sharing a meal as family. And I think that's what communion was always meant to be like. And I know that we're not in the building, we're not experiencing church, at least for the past couple of months, that in the ways that we've been used to, but I think there's something really special about taking communion in each of our homes today. Because I think it shows that regardless of where we're gathered, church isn't the building, church is us. And oftentimes I think we consider connection and community in regards to church as some of the things that we're always doing, whether it's programs or events or maybe courses that we're taking or small groups. And all of those things are vital and important. But especially in this season, it's been really neat to see what coming together as a church has actually looked like. So this morning, as we go to take communion together, I just want you to remember that we are family. We're united in Jesus. We're united in the one who came to save us. And so wherever you are, whether you're sitting at home with your family, whether you're sitting alone, I want you to know that you're part of our family, the family of God. And as children of God, we have this amazing opportunity that we've been invited into. The whole point of communion, Jesus asked for us to remember what he did on the cross by taking communion together. And so I want to read this morning from Romans 8. It says, "Yet God sent us his Son in human form to identify with human weakness. Clothed with humanity, God's Son gave his body to be the sin offering so that God could once and for all condemn the guilt and power of sin. So now every righteous requirement of the law can be fulfilled through the Anointed One living his life in us. And we are free to live, not according to our flesh, but by the dynamic power of the Holy Spirit. Now Christ lives his life in you. And even though your body may be dead because of the effects of sin, his life-giving Spirit imparts life to you because you are fully accepted by God. Yes, God raised Jesus to life. And since God's Spirit of resurrection lives in you, he will also raise your dying body to life by the same Spirit that breathes life into you." When we consider what communion means, it's taking time to reflect and remember all that Jesus did for us. But it's also coming to a place of surrender. It's a time where we get to reflect inward and ask God to show us the things that separate us from him, to show us the mess in our lives, the brokenness. Even though he accepts all of that, it hinders us from having true connection with him. So we're going to just take a little bit of time to just reflect and ask God to look into our hearts. And if there's things that he shows you, just take a moment, and this time is to ask for forgiveness. This time is to humble ourselves and come to a place of asking God to inwardly do all those things that transform our hearts so that we can become more Christ-like. So we're just going to create some space to allow that. And then I'm going to walk us through partaking in the emblems. I'd like to pray for us. God, we thank you for the work that you did on the cross. God, you were mocked, you were beaten, your body was broken for us. And so, God, in this moment, we remember and we offer up our thanks, God, for you coming to earth to save us. God, it was the greatest gift of love, greatest demonstration of love this world has ever known. So God, this morning, as we partake of this bread that symbolizes your body broken for us, God, we are so grateful. And we could never repay you, God. You went to the cross willingly to take on our sin and our shame. And God, as much as this time is to reflect, it's also a celebration, God, because we have been united with you. Thank you for the redemption that this moment brings as we remember together. Jesus, we love you. Let's take the bread together. God, we're grateful for what this cup represents. God, when you hung on that cross, grace and mercy flowed out of you. The blood that was shed on that day, God, covers all of our sin and makes us white as snow. God, even though there's so much brokenness and messiness in our lives, we know that we can come before you in this moment. And that's why you came. You came to save us. You came to redeem us. God, and we are forever reunited with you and the Father. That was your plan all along. God, so we thank you. Thank you for the price that you paid. God, we love you. And as we remember the price of that blood, God, we ask that you would just continue to move in our hearts, continue to move in our lives. God, we are forever, forever grateful. Let's partake together. Romans 8:35 says, "Who could ever separate us from the endless love of God's anointed one? Absolutely no one. For nothing in the universe has the power to diminish his love toward us. Troubles, pressures, and problems are unable to come between us and heaven's love. What about persecutions, deprivations, dangers, and death threats? No, for they are all impotent to hinder omnipotent love." And I love this passage because it just shows that regardless of the things that we experience, regardless of the things that are going on in our lives, God knows that we're messy. That's why he came in the first place. But the beautiful truth about the gospel is that he came to meet us exactly where we are. It doesn't matter where we are on our journey of faith. He loves us just the same. And this next song we're going to sing is a song that we taught you a couple of weeks ago. But it's all about how God meets us where we are. And he takes our hand and invites us into this beautiful journey that he has for us. So let's lean in together this morning. Let's spend some more time in worship. I've been strong and I've been broken within a moment. I've been faithful and I've been reckless at every bend. I've held everything together and watched it shatter. I've stood tall and I have crumbled in the same breath. I have wrestled and I have trembled towards surrender. Chased my heart adrift and drifted home again. Under blessing till I've been desperate to find redemption. Every time I turn around, Lord, you're still there. And I was found before I was lost. I was yours before I was not. There's grace to spare. For all my mistakes, that part just wrecks me. And I know I don't deserve this kind of love, but somehow this kind of love is who you are. It's a grace that can never add up to be somebody you still want, but somehow you love me as you find me. Yeah. Love me as you find me. Who am I to think your glory needs my praises? But if this moral breath is yours, Lord, take it all. You are faithful and you are
don't deserve this kind of love, but somehow this kind of love is who you are. It's a grace that can never add up to be somebody you still want. Somehow you love me as you find me. You love me as you find me. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Oh, I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Not for a minute was I forsaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. Come, Holy Spirit, dry bones awaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. Not for a minute was I forsaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. Come, Holy Spirit, dry bones awaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. Oh, yeah. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again?
God, that is the cry of our hearts this morning, that you would come and meet with us, that you would come close. God, as we just spent time around the table remembering the great sacrifice that you made. God, wherever we are in this moment, we're united through you. And God, ultimately, that's what you came for. So that you could reconcile us back to you, back to the Father. And so, God, as your church, not a building, but a gathering of people who are longing to hear from you, to see you move in our own lives, in our families, in our friends, in this city, across this nation, in the world. God, we are hungry this morning for you. Come and do only the things that you are capable of doing in our hearts. God, but would you bind us together? Could we stand together as your children to be the people that you're calling us to be? God, help us to be beacons of hope for the hopeless. God, help us to speak truth and diminish the lies of the enemy. God, help us to spread your love so that people could just even get a taste and a glimpse of who and what you could be in their lives. God, we're grateful for the transformation, power of the Holy Spirit. And God, as you come and do work in our hearts, help us to be open to hear what you have to say, to lean into all that you are this morning, God. We love you, Jesus. This is all for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Good morning, Redwood. My name is Caitlin. I'm one of the pastors here at Redwood, and wherever you're tuning in from this morning, wherever you're at, I just want to welcome you and say I'm so glad that you're here. We are currently in a series called Identity Theft, and we've been talking through different parts of who we are, who God's created us to be. And that there's these things that are central to our identities that we often don't realize, or we don't live in the reality of that being the truth about us. And so we've talked about how we're called. We've talked about how we've been chosen, that's part of who we are. We've talked about how we've been made alive in Jesus, and we've been invited to something. And today I want to talk about unity. Because unity is actually a part of who we are. To be unified is one of the ways that God has created us as part of our identity. And through this whole series, we've been looking at the book of Ephesians because Paul talks a lot about identity. And so right off the bat, we're going to jump in to Ephesians 4. And Paul says this: make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There's one body, one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. This word unity carries a lot of weight when we look at who Paul was and the history behind it. You know, see, Paul was Jewish. He was a Jewish man, and to the Jewish nation, to the nation of Israel, unity would have carried a lot of weight and significance. Because Israel over the years survived all sorts of things. They experienced slavery, they experienced countless wars, they experienced exile, they experienced oppression from other nations. Even as Paul is writing this, they're currently under Roman rule. So they're second-class citizens, and Rome's making all the rules for them. But through everything that Israel experienced, they stayed a nation. You know, when so many other nations would have been and were wiped out by what this kind of thing that they experienced, Israel remains a nation, not because it was the biggest, not because it was the most powerful necessarily, but because God united the nation of Israel. He united the Jewish people. It was part of their covenant relationship that because Israel was God's chosen people, he united them through everything. And so as Paul is writing this, he would understand this importance and this central, the weight of unity. And as he's talking to the church of Ephesus, the Ephesians, they would have been a church of Gentiles, of people who were not Jewish. But Paul tells them, make every effort to keep the unity. Because Paul's saying he understood that Jesus, died and rose again. And so everything that was available to just the Jewish people for so long was now made available to everyone who believed in him. And so as Paul is talking to the church at Ephesus, this unity is for you too. And I just want to point out, Paul says this word keep the unity. He doesn't say make every effort to get unity or find unity or create unity. He says to keep the unity. Unity is something that we already have because it's a part of who we are. It's a part of who God created us to be. We were created to be unified with God and with one another. You know, when I hear words like unity, united, bond of peace, I love that. That's an exciting picture to me. And yet when I look at the world around us, unity doesn't seem to be very apparent. We've seen really polarizing reactions to COVID recently. We've seen people who are lashing out when people aren't following the proper social distancing guidelines. We've seen people protesting their right to have haircuts. There's a lot of division when we're dealing with issues right now. Racism is deeply affecting our country and our continent. There's been this rise recently of the Black Lives Matter movement, and we've seen protests sweeping across every single major city in Canada and the United States. And the relationship between communities and the government is fracturing. The relationship between communities and the police is deteriorating as people wrestle with how to process this, with how to share their opinions, how to approach it. There's incredible division. I've seen too many videos, too many news articles of people of color describing the racism, the abuse, the hurt, the injustice that they've experienced throughout their entire lives. I've seen the look of fear on police officers' faces, on the faces of protesters as they encounter incredible violence and hatred that's so apparent in our world right now. This breaks the heart of God. What is happening right now, the hurt, the pain, the abuse that people are experiencing breaks God's heart, and it should break ours too. God created each of us to be loved and unified together, not to hate, not to abuse, not to neglect, not to exist divided. And with all of this, disunity that we're seeing, it can feel really hopeless. And I've heard so many other people question, what do we do? How do we even work with this? How do we help? What's our role? And I think the hope is that God is up to something, even in this. That God has a plan to bring unity to a broken and hurting world. And as the church, we have a part in that. We have an important part to play. One of the reasons that unity is so important is that it reveals God's heart to people who don't know him yet. It reveals who God is to those who don't know him. In the book of John, which is one of the Gospels, and so these would be the books of the Bible that recount Jesus' life here on earth. And it records this moment in John 17, verse 20, where Jesus he's praying for the believers. And he prays this prayer, my prayer is not for them alone, so not just for the disciples, but I also pray for those who will believe in me through their message. So that's us right now. I pray that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you've loved me. Do you catch that? So they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them. Unity is so important because when people who don't know Jesus see a unified people, they're going to see God. They're going to see the love of God through the way that we love each other. Through the way that we are, as a church, are unified, God will be made known to people. When you look at your life right now, when you look at the ways that you interact with people, through the ways that you're unified, that you're experiencing unity in maybe your marriage, maybe in your family, maybe in your church, are people going to see God's love? As the church, the way that we deal with racism, are people going to experience, or are they going to see God's love through the way that we do that? Through the way that we interact with other churches, is God's love going to be made known to people? Through the ways that we deal with our own families, with our own kids, with our own spouses, is God's love going to be made known to people? If we're being honest, what are the answers to those questions? Those are hard things to ask because often the answers are not what we want them to be. But it's so important that we press into this because unity is so important for the church and for culture today. Through the way we're unified, we get to bring the life and message of Jesus to people who need it. We ourselves, we can't mend everything that's been broken. We can't heal people's hurts. That's God's job. He's got to be the one to do that. But we, through the way that we practice unity, through the way that we extend the love that we've received to other people, can begin to play a part to make a difference in our communities, in our cities, in our families. And I think that there's a few practical things that we can do to step into this. I think a question, though, is what is biblical unity? What does it mean to be unified? Because when we talk about unity, that can mean a lot of things. We can be unified over all sorts of stuff. We can be unified because we have the same taste in music. We can be unified because we cheer for the same sports team. You can be unified with someone because you've lived in the same place or you've worked in the same location. There's all sorts of reasons that a person could be united with someone else. But this unity that Paul mentions, that Jesus mentions, I think it's a little bit different. Biblical unity means we're united together for one specific purpose. And Paul, throughout all of his ministry, addresses unity a lot because it was an issue that the church had even back then. And there's this one instance in 1 Corinthians 1 that I'm going to read where Paul is speaking to the church in Corinth, addressing a specific issue in unity. And he says this: I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree with one another in what you say, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you may be perfectly united in mind and thought. So, here Paul is making this really bold statement. But what he tells us next points to exactly what he's addressing. He's saying, my brothers and sisters, some from Chloe's household have informed me that there are quarrels among you. What I mean is this: one of you says, I follow Paul. Another says, I follow Apollos. Another says, I follow Cephas. Still another says, I follow Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Were you baptized in the name of Paul? See, Paul is addressing this specific issue of disunity in the church in Corinth. What was happening is that there was people who began to focus on specific leaders and say, this is the one that's doing it right, or we like this leader, or we like this leader. And they began to argue. And as Paul heard this, he's saying, hey guys, the important thing here is that we all agree about the fact that Jesus died and rose again. That is what we're united around. That's where our unity has to come from. Each of those leaders in the early church, they did do things differently. Their ministry and their focus was going to be different. The way they spoke was going to be different. They're going to have different opinions and different practices. But what Paul is trying to help the church understand is that their unity cannot come from anything but who Jesus was and what he did. And it's the same for us. We're called to unity with each other because of who God is and what he's done in our lives, and now what we're moving towards. So unity doesn't look like agreeing with everyone about everything. It doesn't mean that we have to think the exact same way or do ministry in the exact same way or serve in the exact same way or have the same worship style or have the same opinions on things. But what it does mean is that we need to agree that Jesus died and rose again and agree to share that love with the world. That we are united, that we choose to prioritize in spite of our differences. We choose to prioritize and focus on the fact that we have been loved and transformed by the work of Christ. And we want everyone around us to experience that same transformation in their lives. Obviously, this is still a kind of an ambiguous thing. And so I want to give us a couple practical ways that we can begin to keep the unity, to step into our identity as a unified people. And the first is this: if we want to experience unity, if we want to keep the unity, we have to start within ourselves. Paul, within his letter to the Ephesians, gives us this great starting point. You know, right before he talks about unity in that passage that we started with this morning, he gives us this instruction. He said, "As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling that you've received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace." So how do we keep the peace? Through humility, through gentleness, through patience. Paul gives us this list of things that we're going to walk through right now. The first thing he says is humble. You got to be humble. You got to keep humility. In order to experience unity, in order to keep the unity, we need to be humble. And humility, when it comes to unity, I think it just means that in every conversation we have, in every interaction we have, we take the posture of someone who wants to learn and listen. Because so often, we just want people to listen to what we have to say. We want them to agree with us, to be on our same side. And that's not always going to be the case. But what humility does is it lets us let go of our ego and say, I want to serve, I want to listen. I want to understand where someone else is coming from, even if they don't agree with me. This helps us to be united around our common purpose and exist together even with differences. We've got to be humble. The next instruction that Paul gives us is to be gentle. Have you ever watched kids interact with their new sibling? Maybe it was your own kids or somebody you know. Friends of mine just had a baby, and I was there when they introduced this baby to their other children. And it was just a beautiful, adorable, amazing process, and it was so cool to be able to watch that. But the thing that you have to say over and over again is, gentle. You got to be gentle. Because the kids, they don't mean to hurt the baby. They don't want to most of the time. But sometimes they just need to be reminded to be gentle, to care just a little bit more. We need to be like this with each other. I love that gentleness is in this list of things, because so often I think when we think of gentleness, it's like, you're just being passive, or you have to walk on eggshells with people, treat people with kid gloves, tiptoeing around things. And I don't think that's what gentleness is. Gentleness here is just saying you need to practice care for another person. You just need to be reminded to care a little bit about that person. So let's say there's been a disagreement with your spouse, with a friend, with someone you don't really know that well. What would it look like to just extend care even in when you're disagreeing? Operating in gentleness looks like having the conversation, addressing the issue, but in that conversation, you're actively looking for ways to demonstrate that you care for them. Imagine if we just were as passionate about caring for people as we were about our opinions and ideas. That would change the way that we have conversations. It would change the way that we engage with each other in our differences. So we need to be gentle with one another. Paul also directs us that we need to be patient. And I think we all understand what patience is, mostly because we understand what it looks like to be impatient. Patience is so important for unity because I think it gives us this moment of pause. It gives us space to react in the right way. For me, I want to be humble. I want to be gentle. I want to be kind. I want to be loving. But naturally, I'm not that way. And when I'm impatient, the best of me does not come out. More often than not, it's the worst parts of who I am. And what patience does is I think it gives us the space to choose the right option. When we have patience, it gives these other attributes space for us to express ourselves in those ways, where instantly we might respond with arrogance. Patience gives us the space to respond with humility. So if today, you struggle with patience like I do, I encourage you to just ask God, would you give me a moment of pause? Would you help me today? Maybe I can't be patient all the time right now, but would you help me just to have a moment of patience where I can choose to respond in the right way? The final attribute that Paul gives here is bearing with one another in love. In some versions of the Bible use the word tolerance or tolerating, but this doesn't mean, tolerating things like that, like we would think. It doesn't mean letting things slide or just letting things go. Bearing with one another in love, tolerating with one another in love means that we love each other at our worsts. It means that we recognize that each of us is broken, is messed up, is going to respond in the wrong ways sometimes, is going to hurt people with the things that we say than the things that we do. And bearing with one another in love means that we love people even when they're the ones that have caused the disagreement, when they're the ones that are intentionally or unintentionally causing disunity, that we just extend love and grace to them. This is important when it comes to unity because this is the same love that God shows us. The very love that we're unified by is the kind of love that we need to demonstrate to each other. None of this is possible without God, though. None of it. In order to keep the unity that we've been given, in order to live out unity that we've been created for, we need God. Here's this great list of attributes, things that we can practically practice in our lives. But we don't have enough humility, enough gentleness, enough patience, enough love on our own to unify. It has to be done through God. We have to begin the process of unity through an internal transformation that only the work of God's Spirit can do in our lives. We become more unified when our character grows, and our character grows when we encounter the living God. So we need to invite God to begin transforming us, transforming our thoughts, transforming our attitudes, transforming our hearts, so that we can begin to practice more humility, more gentleness, more love, more care for each other. Unity, it starts with us. It starts with us inviting God to transform our lives. And it also starts when we choose to make the first move. That's really important when it comes to unity. Because think about an argument you had. You don't want to be the first one to say, I'm sorry. That sucks. That's not a fun feeling. But with unity, if we're always waiting for the other person to own up first, for the other person to change first, for the other person to agree with us, unity doesn't happen. That's when we see disunity. That's when we see division. If we want to see unity come to our church, to come to our world, come into our lives, we have to be the ones that make that choice first. Unity is also not about us. It starts with us. We have a role to play in it, but we only keep the unity when we focus on serving each other. Unity requires service.
We'll never find unity in life or church if it's all about my needs, my preferences, my opinions. Paul, in Ephesians 4, this passage of scripture that we've been looking at, addresses the importance of service. In verse 11, he says this, so Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and the teachers. So these are just different roles, different gifts that people may have in the church. But he gives these gifts to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up, until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Serving is important when it comes to unity because we each have a part to play in this. Unity requires something of us. It requires all of us. It's not something that just a couple of us can do. It starts with us, it starts within us and the transformative work of Jesus in our lives, but in order to continue to keep the unity, we each have a part to play. And that's where serving comes in. It says here that the unity is found when the body of Christ, so when we talk about the body of Christ, that's our church, that's the church, the people of God. It's built up through serving. Every part is essential for us to meet our goal. Every person has a part to play in this. And this is what it looks like to be church. It's to be unified. The church is built when each of us serves, when each of us serves with the gifts and the abilities that God has given us. We need you. Exactly who you are, with your life experience, with your story, with your weaknesses and your strengths. We need you. You have a part to play. Are you playing your part right now? I want to encourage you with this. God promises to equip us. I think sometimes we don't step into the role that we have in church and the mission of God because we feel inadequate. What do I have to offer? I don't speak in the same way they do. I don't do things in the same way that they do. I'm not good with people like they are. But God has promised to equip us. That God gives specific gifts to each of us and abilities. You have gifts. But he equips us for works of service so that the church, the body of Christ, may be built up. You have something to offer. And so I invite you into this. We need you. And God meets us in this. I think sometimes we don't play our part because it's easier not to. But serving is so important. Playing our part in this is so important because it leads to the mission being fulfilled. We define unity as joining together for a common purpose. And for the church, that's seeing the world come to know Jesus. Serving moves that goal forward. We're all equipped, we're all given gifts to serve and build up the body of Christ, to build up the church. That's important. So that we all reach unity in faith and in knowledge of the Son of God. That we all are unified. So we serve to build the church so that the church can go into our community, into our world, to the people that don't yet know God and demonstrate his love. Church was never meant to be a box to check. It wasn't meant to be just a service that we come and sit in and check a box and leave. It wasn't meant to be all about my needs, my own growth. Oh, that's maybe a part of it. Church was meant to be this movement where people that are broken, that are hurting, get to experience God. That's our mission. because of the way that we are unified, because of the way we serve and love one another, people who don't yet know God will get to experience and see his love. That's an exciting thing. That's where the hope lies. When I see a broken and hurting world, when I see the racism, when I see the destruction, when I see the division that's happening, and it's so easy to feel hopeless, our hope is the fact that God has come to transform this world. He's come to reconcile what's been separated. He's come to heal what's been broken. And one of the ways he does that is through the body of Christ, through the way that we love and serve each other, and the way that we love and serve our world. So I want to ask you as we close today, what do you need to do to keep the unity? What is your role in this today? Where do you need to maybe begin serving? Where do you need to invite God's transformation into your life? Where do you need to keep the unity today? Because imagine what the city of Thunder Bay would look like if we as a church chose to set aside our differences, to love our community that's hurting, to love a city that's broken. Imagine what it would look like if we as churches set aside our differences and chose to unite with all of our churches in Thunder Bay, the big church, to carry out his mission here in Thunder Bay. This could change everything, and we're invited to step into it. But we can't afford to wait as the church for somebody else to go first. We have to be the ones to take the first step. To love when it's uncomfortable. To be gentle with people, to live out humility in our lives. To love when it's really hard. It starts with us. It starts with the way that we love each other and the way that we extend that. So let's choose today to fight for unity. Let's play our part today in whatever God's equipped us with, so that we can go out united to our city and bring the message and hope of Jesus. I have such hope for what God's going to do in this time, and I'm so thankful that we get to be a part of it. I'm just going to pray for us right now. God, thank you for who you are. Thank you for the incredible love that you give to us, God. Thank you that you love us when we're broken. You love us when we're messed up. That you love us even when we do the wrong thing, when we respond in the wrong way, God. And thank you for your church. Thank you for uniting us, God. Thank you for the mission that you've given us to carry out, God. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of hurt, especially in our city. And God, we want to invite you into that and say, we want to be used by you. Would you use us to love the hurting and broken in our city, God? Would you further unite us, God? Lord, would you show us where in our own lives we need to invite you in to transform us? Would you show us where we need to practice unity better, God? And would you lead us and would you guide us? Thank you for who you are. Pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Caitlin, thank you for this important and timely message on unity. As we head off this week, we recognize that maybe you need prayer. And if you would like someone to pray for you, we would invite you to email us at prayer@redwoodpark.org. That's prayer@redwoodpark.org. We have a team of volunteers who would love to pray for you and the things that are on your heart and mind these days. Thank you for joining us today. And as you go throughout this week, I pray that each and one of us would experience the unity and love of Jesus, but that we would also be agents of his love and unity and reconciliation in the places where we live and work in the coming week. May the peace and joy and love of the Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. God bless and have a great week.